When I think about lawyers, I think about three things: A, B, and C. Oh, I used to have a friend from the city and he told me that fuck these, everybody knows these techniques. Today we're gonna talk about a little bit more advanced and natural approach to storytelling. And this video is coming to you from Puerto Escondido, Mexico, where I'm just chilling for a few days before I head to USA to coach a few students and then down to Argentina for a few months. I've already managed to get a few stitches on my head in Mexico, so I've been having some adventures here. And I'm actually making this video mostly for the guys who are going through the 12-week-long online group coaching program that we recently started when I was thinking about a way to teach Daygame in a way that it would be much more affordable, simpler, but still effective for most guys. We're going to be talking about two different approaches to storytelling, and actually I started thinking about them and using them when I was coaching a bunch of guys in Poland in September. And the first one is focusing on topics that you are most comfortable talking about. We are sort of reversing the storytelling model. Instead of telling stories about the topics she brings up, we are moving the conversation to topics we are most comfortable talking about. I coached a very smart, very educated French guy in Poland, and he loved books. He loved reading books, especially books about philosophy. So he would actually steer the conversation with girls towards talking about books. When he came to me to learn Daygame, he said he was specifically interested in smart, educated, and established women. When he was teasing girls about stuff they do outside of work, for example parties, and girls would say that they don't party, he would go to the other extreme, from the parties to you must be the type of girl who's spending her evenings at home drinking chamomile tea and reading philosophy books. And because of the neighborhoods where we were daygaming and the type of women he was approaching, very often that was actually the truth. And when he found out that they are actually crazy party girls, he knew, yeah, he might have fun with them, but he would never take them seriously. And he was looking for something more than just a fling. So it worked great for him. And also we were daygaming a lot in a business district. And whenever he met a girl who was deeply into banking and not just a teller at the bank, he would simply talk about crypto with her. And because he was looking for more than just a fling, he was projecting what type of a person he is, and girls would see that. And then if they want a crazy party guy, then this guy isn't for them. But if they're looking for someone smart and more established and intelligent, then this guy was exactly what they wanted. He learned to do this all the time. He would lead the conversations to the topics he was comfortable talking about, and once he was there, he was like a fish in the water. It doesn't always have to be full with crazy teases. If you are going for that type of a girl, for a bit more kind of smarter, more established, then having a bit more serious conversations is totally fine. It's actually better than crazy playfulness and teasing. But don't get me wrong, you don't have to always lead a conversation to serious topics. You can lead it to whatever topics you're interested in. I've experimented with travel, drugs, BDSM, and other weird things. So first, decide what topics are you most comfortable talking about. Maybe travel, maybe art, maybe books, maybe gym. And when I mean gym, I don't mean the proper technique and the best practices. I mean making fun of the selfies people. Then the second part is making sure you have a few interesting stories about each of these topics. And third, figure out how can you transition to these topics. She might say she doesn't party. Okay, go to the other extreme. Say, oh yes, you might be one of those girls who spends her evenings drinking chamomile tea or sipping a glass of wine and reading, insert your favorite book. Or she might be into banking, and you can say something like, oh yes, you're right in the middle of this war that the traditional banks and crypto is having right now. Or the third way you can transition to these topics is having stacks that naturally move the conversation in this direction. And a second approach to storytelling I want to talk about today is thinking about what experiences you've had in your life with the topic she just gave you in response to your stack. By the way, if this part seems a little bit too complicated, make sure you have watched the Stacking Advanced video and the storytelling videos I have on my YouTube channel. I will link to them in the description. This part is more for intermediate daygamers. But this is actually very simple, and let me explain this to you through examples. For example, she says she's a dentist. Well, when I was a kid, I remember I was terrified. I was so scared of dentists. I would sometimes just not show up to my appointment, or I would show up and I would sit down in the dentist chair and I would simply not open my mouth. So I would tell this story and then I might tease something like, probably if you work with kids, sometimes these kids see you on the street and they just run away from you in the opposite opposite direction. Or if I find out she's at the last year of university, I might tell the story of how I remember my morning of graduation when the alarm rang. I turned off the alarm and I was so happy because I knew that that was the last alarm for school. I really hated those early mornings. And that's why I decided that whatever I do in the future, I will work really hard so I don't have to work in an office and wake up early every day. Or I might tell a story about how when I was studying full time, I was working at a store and I was training martial arts and I was partying a lot. So I don't understand how I had time for all of that shit, but she probably also has a lot of stuff going on. Or she might tell that she just came back from a trip, and if it's a country I've been to, then, well, let's say she just came back from a trip to Mexico, and I might say, oh yeah, actually I spent a few months in Mexico. And I remember this day on the beach when we were just tripping on acid and it was so beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful days on a beach I've ever had. You probably had crazy adventures there too. So in all of these cases, I'm not using any storytelling techniques. I'm simply asking myself, okay, this is the topic. What experiences, what memorable experiences I've had with this topic in my past, and then I'm telling that as a story. But of course, just as with any approach to storytelling, this one as well requires a lot of practice. Storytelling isn't about ability to improvise. It's about having a story on a topic she just gave you and having already practiced that story with 10 other girls before. And now let's talk about the obvious elephant in the room, the obvious trap of falling into boring conversations. Philosophy books and crypto. If you talk about those things in a wrong way, those are very boring conversations. Bringing the conversation to these topics doesn't mean you should talk about them in a boring way or that you should only talk about serious topics. In the online group coaching program, guys will be spending several weeks learning to talk about themselves in a more interesting way and learning to paint the picture of being an exciting guy regardless of how adventurous his life actually is. Most guys actually have a lot of interesting stuff going on in their lives, and probably you do too. But because of the types of conversations we dudes are used to having between ourselves, we just haven't learned to talk about ourselves in a way that makes us appear interesting. Don't take this video as a green light to fall into the trap of the boring guy. Yes, you can talk about crypto and philosophy books, but it doesn't mean you can do it in a boring way. And if those are the only topics you talk about, she's gonna be dry as a desert. This is a more advanced approach to storytelling because of the risk of appearing boring. But if you do this the right way, there are girls who will react much better to this than other ways of storytelling. There are too many things you have to focus on when you are learning storytelling. Was that stop strong enough, or maybe was it too strong? Did this stack that I just chose to use, did it spike her emotions? Is it easy for her to respond to that stack? Was my storytelling on point? Was I talking about myself in an interesting way? And many other things. Usually out of all the mistakes guys are making, there are one or two most important things that if you fix those, everything else will start improving in your sets. And if you learn to understand what those things are as you are progressing, you will save months and months of time on learning Daygame. That's why I created the online group coaching program that focuses on two things. First, weekly accountability calls, because even if you have the best stacking in storytelling, you won't get any results if you aren't taking action regularly. And the second, weekly videos and tasks. Every week I send out a video telling what exactly guys should focus on that week and extra theory videos if necessary. I wanted to create a simpler and more affordable way to learn Daygame. And so far the guys in the program have been doing great. If you want to learn more about it, click on the link in description. Well, that's it for today guys. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to not miss more videos like this, and see you in the next video. Ciao guys.